Durag Diaries. The deal is off. As we speak, Morgan Gibbs White will not be on his way to Tottenham. He will not be a Tottenham player, and the medical is no longer going ahead today. There have been numerous of reports revealing, but to be fair, let's take it back a second. Yesterday, we heard that the news regarding Tottenham's interest to Morgan Gibbs White being released by David Ornstein at around 3:30 to say that we are heavily interested and that Spurs want to get a deal done. Thomas Frank heavily admires this player. Just an hour after that, Mike McGrath had then reported that the deal has been done. A £60 million release clause was triggered, and then all the other journalists followed, the ITKs, whether that's David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano, pretty much everyone followed on with that to say that we have a full here we go on this deal. Now, the news has now just broke that Spurs may not be getting this player, and specifically Nottingham Forest have reported Spurs to the Premier League this afternoon for making an illegal, yeah, you heard that right, an illegal approach and have threatened legal action. Spurs have received communication asking them to cease contact with Gibbs White. Forest declined to comment, but sources say the club believes Spurs tapped up Gibbs White and could challenge the manner in which the £60 million release clause was learned of. The Premier League will now investigate, leading to the deal being delayed and potentially in doubt. So as you can see there, the deal is potentially in doubt and Spurs may not be getting Morgan Gibbs White. Now, I don't know how this could be illegal because my understanding of release clauses is the club contact the club or they contact the players and the agents. They understand the conditions to get the deal done. The conditions in this case was the release clause. There's a £60 million release clause. Once Spurs trigger that release clause isn't with the club. It's usually with the league. You trigger that and then you go and speak to the player, get personal terms done, and the deal is done. Spurs already had personal terms agreed as it was never going to be a problem agreeing those with Morgan Gibbs White. He has just 2 years left on his deal. We heard early on in this window that Manchester City were heavily in for him. So it always looked like Morgan Gibbs White was on his way out of Nottingham Forest. But quite clearly, he is a player that they would like to keep, as you can see with their actions, to take legal action. Now, usually in these cases, it's just a case of the deal may be delayed. We saw what happened with Liverpool and Van Dijk. This going back years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years. But they illegally tapped up Van Dijk, where they ended up paying, I think, a small fine. But they still got the player. Now, there's also other scenarios where it happens with like Elise, when Chelsea agreed a deal for £35 million. They then couldn't go ahead because it was illegal the way they found out about the release clause for them then for Elise to sign a new contract and keep him at the club for another year. Now, the difference with the Elise deal and the Van Dijk deal, and the key difference was Elise was fine with staying at Crystal Palace for another season to then move on after another year. He got a new contract which gave him the bump in wages that he liked. And then they got a release clause at 65 million that was more inclined with what Palace wanted. And also, I suppose Elise wanted to help the club get some more money from the deal. So in all intents and purposes, that was because the player was open staying at the club. Now, with Morgan Gibbs White, he's been pushing for a move. With 2 years left on his deal, 25 years old, his next contract and his next club is probably going to be the next step in his career where he can compete, whether that's going to be Champions League or Europa League level. It's quite clear that Nottingham Forest cannot match his ambitions. But what this will do is probably push him further away from the club because he's not going to want to stay somewhere where they're playing around with him. If he's agreed a fee, they're getting money. They're getting £60 million. This is no chump change, by the way. Morgan Gibbs White is not worth £60 million, but they're getting £60 million for this player. There should be no complaints. Should be absolutely no complaints from Nottingham Forest regarding the fee. But now they're trying to delay the deal, stop him from coming to Tottenham. And he's going to end up here. He's going to end up here, whether they like it or not. So me personally, am I worried that this deal doesn't get done? No. I think this still gets done. It's just a matter of time. Again, I'll maintain consistency. I'm not the biggest fan of MGW anyway. So if this still doesn't go the right way, and Spurs can look to move on, then I just hope that that money gets reinvested into someone else and we actually go spend it. Because my biggest worry would be that we would just pocket the 60 million, go for some other targets, but the targets ain't at the same Premier League proven level that Morgan Gibbs-White level is at. So I'm very calm about this situation. I'm very cool about it. He may, not come to Tottenham, but he may come to Tottenham. Let's see how this all plays out. But there is obviously somebody upset, Marinakis in particular, at the Nottingham Forest side of things. And apparently the release clause was secret. So they didn't want nobody to know about it so they could negotiate a better fee, which again would be crooked business anyway. So you can call Tottenham crooks, but Nottingham Forest are the real crooks here in this deal. But look, people, big up to everyone that's tuning in, checking into Durag Diaries for all your transfer news, gossip, and everything. We are on the road to 5K, real close to 3K, just like 150 away. So make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on all other social platforms. If you want to follow some extra support, you can scan here to buy me a coffee. I'm very thirsty. I could do with one. But yeah, man, big up to everyone inside. Big up to everyone that's tuned in. It's been another Durag Diaries episode. Tap the post notification button. Stay up to date with everything, our channel, and we are out.